So late last night, Nintendo released their financials for this past fiscal quarter. The fiscal quarter started in June, ended at the end of September, and I think it's very important to keep an eye on sales because that'll tell us how things are doing with the Switch, how are things going with Nintendo and their different games they're selling, and eventually, like I've said before, and we've kind of seen this with some third parties, they will start to notice the install size of the Switch, as Nintendo themselves have said they want to kind of combat the next generation by just having a large install size and being pretty much impossible for third parties to ignore. The larger the install size for the Switch, the better the games sell, the more willing third parties are to take a chance on the install size and bring games to the Switch. So that's why these sales are important, and that's why I think people should at least be aware. If someone had told me about the Dreamcast sales back when I bought it in 2000 or I got it in 2000, I probably would have just waited for a PS2. Also, do me a favor and like the video and let me know down in the comments if you were surprised by any of the numbers you're about to see, especially the Switch Lite sales, as some people were unsure as to how well it would sell. We're going to start right here with the units. Okay, so we have the Nintendo Switch here, 41.67 million units. It sold just under 5 million, about 4.8 million units is what the Switch family of systems, because that's what we refer to it now, right? We have the Switch Lite and the Switch. They grouped them together, but they did also report numbers separate. So we know how well the Switch Lite did, and we know how well just the regular Switch did. And keep in mind, when you hear these numbers, the Switch Lite was out for 10 days. It came out September 20th, remember? So that, alongside with Link's Awakening, did not have very long in this fiscal quarter to report numbers, but well, check this out. So the Switch Lite did 1.95 million units, almost 2 million units in 10 days. That's pretty good. That is really good, actually. And in that same fiscal quarter, we had the regular Switch sell 2.85 million. I hope a lot of people waited for the revision rather than get the older one. Hopefully they bought the red box Switch. But there were a lot of people who probably bought a Switch alongside of something like Mario Maker 2. So I guess it couldn't really be helped that much. But hey, maybe they just play it docked and they don't really care about the extra battery life. But yes, 1.95 million units for the Switch Lite really shows, again, in 10 days, shows really how strong that price point is out of the gate. $200 is very, very good for a current gen Switch system. I know it's just the handheld variant of it at that point. It's not technically the home console variant, but it still plays the same games. And to a lot of people who don't care about it being docked and it's just like a travel system for them, or they seriously just don't want to play it on TV, $200 is very compelling considering it's not even at the end of its third year yet. That's mostly Nintendo's strategy here, as we've talked about before. They want to combat next generation with just overall install base. And having a $200 system now, this early into its life, will help them do that. They've already hit 41.67 million units overall. And I think at the end of this holiday quarter that we're currently in, because keep in mind, this will run to the end of December, then at the end of January, they'll report numbers. We should see the Switch pass the Super Nintendo, which is just over 49 million units, and we should see it pass the Xbox One already. Keep that in mind. Xbox One came out in 2013. Should pass the Xbox One. The Xbox One is right around 46.5 to 47 million units now. So yes, after the holidays, which, by the way, there is a chance, I'm going to put this out there, with the Switch Lite and Pokemon all happening this holiday, there is a chance that the Switch will cross 10 million units. I think it's going to be between 8 and 10 is where I believe. So there's a chance that they report over 50 million units at the end of January. And that will be massive because I've said before, third parties need that big install base. And when you get over 50 million, they'll start paying attention even more so than they are now. Because keep in mind, we've seen some third parties start to kind of roll over to the Switch a bit, right? I mean, we saw who would have expected Mortal Kombat to show up? Mortal Kombat 11. That's a big one there. So yeah, you'll see more and more of these big publishers start to look at it. Will EA? I don't know. You know what? I think a lot of people are just kind of laughing at EA occasionally. So maybe most people don't care anyway about EA. But let's take a look at some of the units for sales on the different games, because there are a few in there. However, I will admit the whole top part, as you're seeing here, is pretty much just evergreen titles. Like, we only have a few that we can talk about that are new that actually made this list. There's Mario Kart 8 Deluxe coming up on 20 million. Very, very close, actually. Smash Bros. Ultimate over 15.5. Mario Odyssey over 15. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild coming up on 15 million. That's big for Breath of the Wild. If you take the Wii U sales into account, we'd be talking about it rolling up to 20 million probably by next year, which is good. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee at 11.28 million. I do believe that Sword and Shield is probably going to report at the end of January at least 15 million units. Yes, I know there's controversy around National Dex, but I'm going to tell you now, a lot of people will buy it when it comes out because their friends will buy it. And then they'll be like, oh, well, it's still the new Pokemon game and I like Pokemon, so I'm going to buy Pokemon. It's going to happen. Pair that with the Switch Lite to pull over the people who just play it on the 3DS and they don't want to spend $300 on the system and $200 more of their ballpark. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of people on board with Pokemon and the Switch Lite all at once. So it'll be pretty out of hand there. Splatoon 2 is actually coming up on 10 million, which is good for the Splatoon franchise. Mario Party surprises me with how many it's sold, considering Nintendo just kind of threw it out there with no real good online multiplayer and no update since. But it's Mario Party. Mario Party still sells, so there you go. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe is a game that most people, like myself, believe did not need to exist at its price point, but it still sold over 4.5 million pieces. And then we get to some of the newer titles. We only have 2 on here, and the reason for that is because, as you see, the last one on the list is over 3 million units. You basically have to be able to sell over 3 million units in a quarter if you're a new game to make this list. Now, Mario Maker 2 came out in June, right? June 20th. That, believe it or not, less than 4 million. I'm a little surprised. I thought it was going to be more than that because it's Mario Maker and it's the sequel. I thought a lot more people would be on board. However, after thinking about it a little more, I do believe that Mario Maker 2 is going to be a big holiday selling game. I think it's going to be a game that's gifted quite a bit, and I do believe we'll see a jump from this past quarter going through the holidays, and we'll find out more at the end of January, but I think this will jump pretty big. Otherwise, this would be kind of a disappointment for Mario Maker 2 just out of the gate. So I think it'll be an evergreen title, though, and it'll just gain steam over time. And you know what? It could end up being a 10 million unit seller before it's all said and done, which would be, I think, okay for a sequel to the first Mario Maker. Here's the one that I was really happy to see, by the way. This is the one I've been talking about. Link's Awakening. 3.13 million units in 10 days, and it came out on the same day as the Switch Lite. So keep that in mind. The Switch Lite may already have been pulling money that could have been spent on Link's Awakening away from it. I mean, some people may have bought Link's Awakening with their Switch Lite, but for the most part, there are probably people who went out and bought a Switch Lite and had to decide, okay, can I spend more money on Link's Awakening or have to wait? 10 days, keep that in mind, in the quarter. 3.13 million pieces. The price point was already controversial at $60, but it still sold over 3 million units in 10 days, which tells me, it should tell you, it should tell Nintendo, that there is still a place for a top-down Zelda game on the same system as Breath of the Wild, right? So Breath of the Wild and a top-down Zelda game can exist together on the Switch. Before, they may have separated that, right? A Link Between Worlds on the 3DS sold just about 4 million units. This is right behind it in 10 days. It will pass it over the holidays, despite there being a Breath of the Wild on the Switch. Some people just like top-down Zelda games. I really like top-down Zelda games. I know this was Link's Awakening, and that may, of course, had some heavy nostalgia play into things, but I do think at its current sales that Nintendo may look at this and say, okay, you know what? Let's take a shot at a new top-down Zelda game. I am very happy to see this. It's great to see that there's still a place in the market for it. And who knows, maybe this year coming up we get Breath of the Wild 2, and maybe the following year we find out about another top-down Zelda game. Maybe Nintendo wants to split it up. Maybe we get a 3D Zelda game, a top-down Zelda game, a 3D Zelda game, a beat-em-up or some hack and slash or spin-off or something, then we get a top-down Zelda. I think that'd be a cool way to split it all up, and it seems like they can get away with it on the Switch. Now, there are some games missing, and we're going to talk about them. Astral Chain is not on this list. It's also not on Nintendo's multi-million unit selling list, which means it's somewhere between 500,000 and I guess just over a million. It's somewhere in there. So Astral Chain, I don't think exploded in sales like maybe some people were thinking it would, but that doesn't necessarily mean it didn't meet expectations. It seemed like Platinum was fairly happy with how things were going and how excited people were for it. But Nintendo didn't report anything about Astral Chain, which may mean that there wasn't a ton to report on it. So it's hard to say about those sales units. I can tell you, though, if it was above 3.13 million units, it would have been on this form here. If it was above 2 million, it would have been on the other forum. Now, on the other forum, we did have Fire Emblem Three Houses. Fire Emblem Three Houses sold 2.29 million units in, what's that, roughly 2 months? Because it came out in July, so it had August and September to sell. That's about right. 2.29. So here's the thing. I've said this before with Fire Emblem. I got a little pushback. Strategy RPGs don't sell overwhelmingly well, okay? Fire Emblem, I think at 2.29, I do think it's going to top out at 4 million units when it's all said and done. JRPGs, strategy games like these, they tend to have a pretty good start and then they fall off dramatically. Now, they could release some content, some post-content, right? Some expansions, other things to kind of keep sales going. But for the most part, these tend to fall off. So I'm thinking about 4 million lifetime is probably the roof for Fire Emblem. But again, we have the holidays. You never know. That could end up being a game that people buy for others over the holidays. And that's where we're really going to be able to tell. If it does not crack 3 million over this holiday period, so it would need another 750,000, it's probably going to top out at 4 million when it's all said and done before we get another one introduced down the road. I think this is good enough for them to continue the series. That's not an issue. I think they've made money on it. So for the most part, a strategy RPG like Fire Emblem, only one version of the game, because before they were doing multiple versions. Not bad. But overall, yes, the Switch is making money, as you'd figure. Nintendo is still making money. Go figure. A lot of money, actually, to billions of dollars. But the Switch, with its install size growing, is only going to attract more companies to build games for it, specifically for it. That's the biggest thing. Looking at Luigi's Mansion that I'm playing right now, actually, I had to take a break to do some video work here. Looks very, very good on the Switch, like shockingly so. The animations are great, the visuals look awesome, the shadows and everything, it just looks very, very good. So I do believe that if companies are willing to take a chance on the Switch and develop specifically for it, they can make some very good looking games, very good running games, but they have to have a reason to do it. Install size will make them do it. So there you go. Hopefully Nintendo continues to build like they say they will with install size. And this holiday is going to be very interesting because if they do pass 50 million, passing the Xbox One, passing the Super Nintendo, I think third parties are really going to be looking at them like, oh, wow, okay, so the Switch is now the system to develop for. Well, let's see what we can do on that. So let me know what you guys think about the sales here, whether it is, maybe we'll talk a bit about Link's Awakening, maybe we'll talk about Mario Kart 8, a Wii U game selling at this point close to 20 million units on the Switch, or maybe we'll talk a bit about Fire Emblem or Astral Chain, or just the Switch sales in general, or even the Lite. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.